Good morning, people, and welcome to Breakfast Extra, where the tea is always hot, the gist is never watered down, and yes, sometimes the soup, it boils over. I'll come back to that reference in a bit. Let's talk about dissent this morning. Now, Nigeria has a long history of trying to mute critics and failing spectacularly. Take the 1970s, Fela and Kuti, musician, rebel, prophet with a saxophone. He sang against military rulers, against corruption, against hypocrisy. The response? Well, he was jailed, beaten, and banned. His Kalakuta Republic was raided and burned to the ground. But what happened? Well, he became more radical and more defiant. Instead of silencing him, the regime created anthems that still play today. Fast forward to the 1990s. Saro-Wiwa, writer and activist, dared to expose the oily truth in the Niger Delta. He told the world that while Shell and the state made billions, his Ogoni people drank poisoned water and farmed on spoiled soil. For his words, General Sani Abacha's regime dragged him before a kangaroo tribunal. In November 1995, he and 8 others, the Ogoni Nine, were executed. Abacha thought the story ended there, but it didn't. Nigeria was suspended from the Commonwealth. Sanctions hit. Abacha's name is now tied to stolen billions and suspicion of his own death. Saro-Wiwa's name, however, etched in history as a martyr whose words still travel. Now, even in the 21st century, the pattern hasn't changed. In 2020, during the End SARS protests, young Nigerians stood up against police brutality. They marched, they chanted, they tweeted, and at the Lekki toll gates, they were shot upon. Soldiers opened fire. The images of flags stained red and voices drowned in gunfire were meant to end the movement. But what did it do? It didn't. Instead, they deepened the wound and created a permanent scar in our national memory. Now, 2025, Omoyele Sowore is yet another one. Journalist, activist, perennial thorn in the backside of power, I know. The government believes that silencing him, dragging him to court, and demanding that he delete an anti-Tinubu tweet will weaken him. But like those before him, every attempt only swells his symbolism. His defiance fits neatly into this Nigerian continuum. The more you try to choke one man's voice, the louder it echoes. It's called the Streisand effect. You can check it out. Now, this is not just a Nigerian lesson. The fact is, the same story is playing out thousands of miles away in the Himalayas. In Nepal, the government tried to silence an entire generation by pulling the plug on social media, banning TikTok, and clamping down on online speeches. Imagine telling a generation that basically lives online to log off by decree. Well, what followed was predictable. Outrage. By September 5th, protests spread across major cities. Riot police faced off with students. Tear gas met chants. And in a single day, 19 young people were killed. Now, instead of restoring order, repression triggered chaos. Prisons burst open. Thousands escaped. And the Prime Minister found himself perched on a collapsing throne, scrambling to contain the fallout. So what began as an attempt to discipline youth became a landslide, shaking the very core of government. It's different continents, different triggers, but it's the same fire, youth anger. Remember Kenya? Same generation. In Nigeria, as well as in Kenya, the spark is bad governance, joblessness, and police brutality. In Nepal, it was social media ban. Different matches, same explosion. Because when you gag young people, you don't stop them. Instead, you actually push them into the streets. Now, let's be fair. Gen Z isn't always very logical. Critics say that they lack patience, that they are impulsive, emotional, and sometimes reckless. And they are right, but to a point. Because what critics miss is that urgency is a powerful tool. Urgency, when bottled, as dynamite. Mishandled, it explodes in chaos. But if you manage it wisely, it can fuel progress. It can help renew. It can even reform. This is where governments keep missing the plot. They believe that repression is a shortcut to peace. History keeps showing them the opposite. Repression, well, it breeds martyrs. Martyrs, they breed movements, and movements topple regimes. From Mohamed Bouazizi in Tunisia setting himself ablaze in 2010 and igniting the Arab Spring, to Nelson Mandela transforming 27 years in a cell into the end of apartheid, the record is crystal clear. Silence is never permanent. And yet, well, leaders still fall for the same illusion. The idea that there's a mute button for dissent. Well, they press it, they are convinced that they've ended the noise. But what they don't realize is that mute buttons are actually volume knobs. And it only turns up the volume exponentially. So, finally, here's the lesson for both Abuja, Nairobi, and Kathmandu. And for every seat of power where young voices rise, dissent is not a disease to be cured. It's a pressure to be managed. Treat it as fuel, not as fire. You have to engage it, channel it, learn from it. Because if you don't, it will learn how to consume you. And to the leaders who keep reaching for the big stick, remember this: when you clamp on a lid too tightly on a pot of boiling soup, you don't stop it from cooking. You just guarantee that it's going to explode. And when it does, everyone gets burned.